Bruh, these prices, they are absorbent. Abhorrent? They're too high, honestly. You guys know what this is about. It's Kinz video time. Let's do it. Yo, what is going on, my fellow weebs? Chrono here, welcome back to the channel. So it's been a minute. The Kinz weapons have been out for about a week now, and if you've watched this video before, you know how they go. We're going to go over potential, kind of how they work, what they do, as well as their relative strength to the current weapons we have in the current meta in NGS. Something you're interested in? Stick around. If you're just curious of the overall answer, I'll let you know ahead of time now. Stronger than Alexio. Comparatively 1-to-1 Alexio. It's a bit stronger. Comparatively with Alexio, even stronger. To Grand Illusion, not too big of a jump. It's about a 5% difference, give or take. Of course, this is me paraphrasing. The exact numbers will be later in the video, and we'll go over here with you guys. But I want to save as much time for you guys as possible if you're just looking for a direct comparison and you want the answers. Obviously, it's the strongest weapon we currently have available to us, and we likely will see the similar strength when the Grand Illusion reaches its final upgrade. But I digress. Let's go ahead and jump into the actual video. So to start things off, we're over on the Visiphone site. This is where we usually do our comparisons of all the potentials. We scroll on down, all the way down to the very, very bottom, we have our Kinz weapon. Now, the Kinz weapon, we can see flat out, it is more base damage. You know, a good chunk higher than the Grand Illusion. You got 20 more basically than the Grand Illusion across the board. 10 more than the Lexio. You'll see that kind of reflected in the actual comparisons when it comes to damage here in just a moment, but we could take a look at its potential Triumphant Light. So Triumphant Light unit, potency plus 65%, which I believe is the highest currently we have right now. Yeah, 65 is the highest. 65% damage resistance plus 5% each time one of these conditions is met, increasing to a maximum of 15%. So specifically, it has no damage resistance once this starts, but once you switch the weapon. But once you reach one of the conditions, it will increase its damage resistance up towards a 15%. So the first one is when you land a critical hit. The second one is upon using a rest assign, and the third one is after 100 seconds. So this is how this actually goes. When you're using the weapon itself, there are the orbs that will flow behind you. You have 3 different color orbs. One of them will represent, of course, dealing a critical hit. I believe that is a red orb. One will represent using a rest assign. I believe that's the green orb. And then one will represent the amount of time that has passed. That will be the blue orb. Now, when all conditions are met, you are prevented from, or you're prevented. Sorry, when all conditions are met, you are prevented from being launched or knocked back by an enemy. Critical rate plus 20%, critical potency plus 5% for 20 seconds. After this effect ends, the rest assign one rest assign is replenished. So, big things of note here when it comes to the Kinz weapons. One, you can use a rest assign even if you are at 100% HP. That is specifically so you're able to activate this actual potential, because most of the time when you use one, you're not able to do so. On top of that, you're able to tell that you are in that mode, or you have that increase, purely by the fact that you have a purple orb floating behind you. So all of the other orbs will disappear and be replaced with the purple orb. Purple orb is, you know, you're in your god mode or whatever you want to call it. The biggest thing here though is you actually have full agency over how you activate this. So you can always tell when it's time for you to activate, as long as you're not just spamming your rest assigns. Now, after 100 seconds, so it's like a 120-second cycle basically, because 20 seconds up and then it's 100 seconds afterwards. But after your 100 seconds, the blue orb should pop up for you. When that blue orb is up, if your green orb isn't already up, you can press it to go ahead and go into the purple orb state. But if you've just taken damage, your green orb is already up, 100 seconds has passed, and of course you've landed a crit, because we hit so many times nowadays, the likelihood of you not landing a crit on something would be really, really low, unless you have like just base, even at base 5% crit, I feel like you would still land a crit at some point. You would then go into the purple. So if you're playing very, very well, it's very easy to manage when this activates exactly. If you're playing kind of poorly and you pop rest assigns here and there, then it can be a little bit more, it muddies the waters on exactly when it activates. But the idea here is that rest assign usage is what activates your potential. Everything else should be more or less automatic. You automatically deal a crit hit. Of course, 100 seconds passes on its own. That rest assign should be kind of like your big ticket item. And you really want to make sure you're not popping it early. That way you have agency over when it's going to go down, because you really don't want to have a situation where you go into, you know, of course, your increased potency and then your increased crit rate, and the target's about to be down, and that all ends right after the target is down, and it's just bad time. So the idea here is that you are able to utilize that rest assign to kind of keep that in mind for you. So maybe keep an eye on other healing options, or maybe, you know, stick around your your forces or your attackers, providing a bit of extra healing occasionally when you're using this weapon. That does also make it a pretty I wouldn't say a good candidate, but a decent candidate for something like turnover, as you're able to activate turnover by just pressing a rest assign, and you can even do so when you are at full HP. So pretty cool stuff there. Now, just a heads up, we're going to move over to the damage calculator. This damage calculator is made by Cakewalk, fantastic individual. The PS2 community updates the damage calculator consistently, so if you ever want to go ahead and do your own damage calculations, you're more than welcome to do so. I'm warning you now because we're about to pop over to a Google Sheets, which is going to be a flashbang. So you have been warned in 3, 2, 1. So here we are on the damage calculator in case you ever want to use this yourself. I've made an entire video explaining how this works. I've also made multiple videos using this where I kind of talk about this really quickly. So there's plenty of information about how to do this in case you guys are ever curious, but this is the link to it directly. If you actually come, the link will be in the video description. You can go ahead and go over there, click on file, and then you make a copy, of course. Then you have your own version that you can actually edit and change things in to have it fit your specific needs. Of course, everything that has one of these colored cells, you can edit. Anything that is a gray cell cannot be edited or changed. Just keep that in mind as far as how that works. Also make sure that you got, your right class selected, so on and so forth. Any sort of specifics here also are selected as well. As far as active skills, blah, 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 blah. Just all those different things here for you. Now we're going to do comparison based off of the Grand Illusion as our baseline. This is a Grand Illusion with attack 5. They come baseline with, I believe with, what is it? Photon Blast or Blaster 5. That's the word I'm looking for. They come baseline with Blaster 5. We could do comparison on that, but honestly, attack is just kind of a good midline I like to use for everything. And this is just the BIS current setup, including the new PETA trial. So, and the reason we're using it is, to be perfectly honest, it's not difficult to get BIS these days anymore. It's just a bit of time investment, and that's about it. And of course, making purchases at the right times. Now, if you're buying things out of season, then of course you're going to run into problems with things that are too expensive for you. But the most expensive line of upgrading nowadays is really just the cost in Meseta to upgrade stuff, like to actually level it up, limit break and all that stuff. Upgrade rings, as well as if you were going after the big ticket weapons like the Kinz, like we're talking about today, that's where things tend to be really expensive. Other than that, everything else is completely reasonable and pretty easy to get a hold of. Grand Illusions are really, really good too. But yeah, we're looking at Origis 5 units. We're looking at a Grand Illusion 5, and let's take a look at the comparison table, the thing you guys are here to see. It's empty. I'm joking. All right. So Grand Illusion, our baseline, Grand Illusion 5. You can see that our Luxio, 4-player estimated, which, I mean, realistically, I feel like everything should realistically be 4-player estimated, as you're usually not, it's rare that, people are building to solo. Not that solo players aren't valid, and they aren't actually, build the solo, but it's rare that people are building to specifically solo nowadays, as opposed to, playing in a party. So fixed attack, we can look at, and we see a baseline of about 5 or 6% weaker than the Kinz, and about almost 5% weaker than the Lexio. About what we expected for the most part. That's of course 4-man uptime Lexio. You got to keep in mind that Lexio is also giving you some damage bonus as well. You're also getting some damage off of that Lexio too. So it's not an exact perfect science. If you have someone that's running a Lexio, they're getting good damage as well as they're giving you some damage as well. And of course some crit rate. So it's really nice overall. That's not really factored into here from what I understand. Cakewalk might say something different in the comments below, but just keep that in mind that it may not be calculated in with the extra bonuses you're getting from Lexio unless it's part of the Lexio calculation itself. So there might be a little bit more damage to be had here in this situation. You can see the buff period is 120 seconds. Of course, the 100 seconds downtime and 20-second uptime for the buff period. So it has a 120 cycle. And it's a pretty solid amount of damage. I mean, if you look over something like, let's say, a Bandak, which again is very, very reasonable, you're looking at 7.6 comparatively to like, a fixed attack or something like that of a Grand Illusion. So if you're someone who does build for a Bandak, which a Bandak is substantially easier to build for nowadays with the introduction of the MN units, and as well as, the MN augments, as well as everything else you have to work with, it's pretty simple to build this stuff. And then of course, if you can't, you've always had access to something like Wix, or maybe you are a Ranger main. That pretty much means you're running Wix no matter what. But Bandix is very, very useful, very reasonable to build for, and you can see the damage differences. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, you're looking at roughly a 5 to 6% damage increase off of Grand Illusion for Kinz, while about a 5% damage increase off of Grand Illusion for something like Lexio with its buff up. Without its buff up, with it in 4-man. Without it in 4-man, it's about a 3% difference, which is what makes a bit more sense. Honestly, I feel like this is the variant you actually want to pay attention to, not so much this one, because this one is also affecting this one here, because you're going to use it in 4-man group. So this is the actual comparison you're looking at here. So about roughly a 3% jump off of the Lexio, which, yeah, that makes about sense. Definitely wouldn't recommend it for someone who says they're like a career support. Not that you don't want damage, but I feel like having the Lexio or having someone run the Lexio in the group is actually to be very, very beneficial, especially since one of the buffs that Kinz provides is not only crit rate, but also crit damage, giving that Lexio's buff even more of a use. And for those who weren't around for the Lexio video or haven't seen how Lexio actually works, so it's 62% potency. You and your party members stock 1 additional attack when you deal 250% or 250k damage to enemies. You stock up to 4, 5-second cooldown. Expand 1 stock when you hit an enemy to perform an additional attack that recovers HP. Critical potency plus 5%, as well as 15 second, or sorry, critical potency plus 5% for 15 seconds when 4 additional attacks are activated. So you get a bonus of critical potency with Lexio. So you know, it's gonna go alongside of the Kinz providing its damage or providing its buffs as well. So pretty solid use case overall, pretty solid weapon. I think it's gonna be in a good spot. It's gonna be probably the strongest weapon we'll have for the foreseeable future of the 15 stars. You probably won't see anything until they decide to do either a 16 star or an EX star or whatever they decide to go with past 15 stars. And a lot of people are concerned because they're like, oh, well, you know, we're not going to see anything past 15 stars. Previous game ended at 15 star. There's a lot more to go. We're not anywhere near done yet, so I would expect to see something past this. But overall, the Kinz weapon is pretty freaking solid. Now, I've yapped on long enough. If there's anything I missed, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Oh, I guess you could show Epith. It's still 50% behind everything else. It's really bad. At least get a Grand Illusion. This is my usual issue against Epith. At least get yourself a Grand Illusion. They're really, even the baseline Grand Illusion that just drops, just unlock the potential and roll with that. That's even way better overall. I would say go that being the route. That's all I've got for you guys today. If there's anything I missed, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to keep up with more. As always, thank you to the channel members as well as the Patreon members. You guys are fantastic and I appreciate every single one of you. And I will see you all in the next video. Take care, my friends. Peace out.